Hello YouTube. In this video we will be addressing the subject of stabilizing video footage for less than $200 Canadian on two different types of devices, a stabilizer sled from Yelangu and a shoulder rig from Pro Master. They both work very differently and they both accomplish different things, so let's find out if one really is better than the other for improving your video recording. First off is the value of these items. The Pro Master shoulder rig sells for $190 at Lens & Shutter, and I bought the Yelangu s60t model stabilizer sled for $125 off of eBay. Your hands will get fatigued much sooner with the stabilizer sled because it weighs approximately 1,400 grams, and you have to support the whole of its weight in one hand. I can hold it for about 4 minutes before I need a break. But the shoulder rig weighs 555 grams, and you can support part of its weight with one hand while your shoulder supports the rest of it. I didn't time it, but I have held the shoulder rig for at least 5 minutes, and I didn't even feel tired. An advantage of the shoulder rig is that its setup time for me was about 3 times faster than the stabilizer sled, with my fastest assembled time being 1 minute and 40 seconds, though I could go even faster with more practice. The stabilizer sled was much slower. Even when assembling it to memorized settings, it is still very finicky. My average setup time seems to be about 6 minutes, plus or minus some, because it's a bit different every time around. To test out their performances, I went outside for a walk along a straight line, hand-holding the camera as steady as I could, but it was quite bumpy. Now here is the shoulder rig, but to be honest, it didn't seem to be any better than my handheld footage. Here they are side by side. Now here is the stabilizer sled, and look at how much smoother it is. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good value for the money, and certainly better than the shoulder rig. Here are all 3 side by side for comparison. For the next stability test, I will strafe around this bush, first by hand-holding the camera. Now I will try it with the shoulder rig. Here are the handheld and shoulder rig scenes side by side, and this time the shoulder rig was noticeably stabler than my hands. Now here is the stabilizer sled, or glide cam as many call it. Here is the rig and the sled together, and I would say that the glide cam wins again. In this test, I am manually focusing the lens, handheld, and panning the camera around without walking. So first I focus on the plant, then pan over to the camera, and then over to a deck support beam. Now I will do the same thing, but with the shoulder rig. You will have to pardon me for overexposing it, but notice how the footage is less jittery than the handheld? It seems that the process of manual focusing the shoulder rig is not faster than the handheld footage, but it is a bit stabler though. Here they are side by side for direct comparison. And you can see that they are similar, but the shoulder rig has reduced micro jitters over the handheld, but not necessarily in every moment. The stabilizer sled was not such a great performer here without autofocus, because whenever you touch the camera, the sled wobbles all over the place. Pulling focus manually or rotating a dial or tapping a button just throws the glide cam out of balance. Although one trick you could do is just rest the bottom sled on your knee or hip, then it acts very similar to the shoulder rig, although your range of movement is limited. Tilting up and down is not necessarily easier with the shoulder rig than with the stabilizer sled, but it felt more natural as the sled resists these movements and wants to level itself out. Interestingly, the footage by raising and lowering the sled and the rig are both similar, but overall in my testing I felt that the glide cam was a bit steadier than what I was able to get with the shoulder rig. Overall, I felt that the point should go to the shoulder rig. In this test, I will concentrate on this plant while being as still as possible, hand holding. Now let's try it with the shoulder rig. While it is steadier, the larger movements appear to be the same while the smaller movements are noticeably stabler. Here they are side by side, and yeah, the shoulder rig is better. Now here is the stabilizer sled, and the larger shakes are even smoother than what the shoulder rig yielded, but oddly, there are micro jitters that seem to mildly freak out on 2-second intervals. I'm pretty sure that it is because the gimbal assembly's bearing is not precision made, or the oil in it is too thick from the factory, but it is not frictionless as it should be ideally. Here are the rig and the sled together for comparison. Also, this segment of stabilizer sled footage was of the best portion of the source footage that it came from, that most of which was jerkier than this segment, so you are really just looking at the best part. The reason this matters is that the shoulder rig footage was fairly consistent, in the sense that any two random segments of it from the source footage of this plant scene had a higher likelihood of looking the same as each other. Overall, I would say that the handheld footage is the worst, and the shoulder rig minimizes the micro jitters the best, and the stabilizer sled minimizes some of the larger shakes better, but if you blink or tense in a muscle, the movement, as small as it might be, will transfer to the camera easier than it would with the shoulder rig. It's a close call, but I'll give the point to the shoulder rig here. The easiest device to watch on the screen was the stabilizer sled because you can hold it right in front of your face. The screen on the shoulder rig, however, was always slightly offset from the line of sight. You always have to keep staring off to the side a bit, despite the fact that the mounting frame is adjustable along the shoulder pad. But if you have a camera with a tilt and swivel screen, such as a Lumix GH4, you could possibly bypass this problem if you put the rig on your right shoulder, flip the screen away from the camera, and more into your eye's line of sight. Adding accessories to the stabilizer sled throws it out of balance. Once it is set up, you cannot add extras unless you recalibrate the whole thing. But the shoulder rig can accommodate extra pieces of kit in up to seconds, including cages, microphones, a light, a follow focus, anything. On the other hand, if you don't plan on loading it up, then you might just be better off with a glide cam. Wind can be a problem for the gimbal, because if there is enough of it, it pushes the sleds out of balance, which is quite annoying. So you really have to steady it with your hand and make sure the wind doesn't take it away on you. Unfortunately, I cannot demonstrate it in this scene because there was little wind in this moment, but I have been out on this street corner numerous times with the sled in windy conditions. Too bad I didn't save any of that footage. The shoulder rig, however, is not affected by the wind at all. The shoulder rig is very easy to use and does not involve all the physics of balancing that goes into a stabilizer sled. The sled requires a lot of practice to both balance it and operate it. If you want quick results, then this is an easy win for the shoulder rig. Well, this was a basic review of these two devices. Like I said, they do perform quite differently. The shoulder rig scored 7 points while the stabilizer sled scored 4 points. So it would appear that the shoulder rig has a lot going for it. The stabilizer sled yielded much better quality footage while walking, but the shoulder rig showed itself to be better when not walking. So for stabilization performance alone, the best device for the job really just depends on the user. Also, the stabilizer sled is a little cheaper and makes it a bit easier to view the camera's screen, but the shoulder rig is much lighter, much faster to set up, can accommodate many accessories without worrying about balancing, is perfectly stable in the wind, and is much easier to use, especially for a beginner. I hope you enjoyed this review and found it helpful. Thanks for watching.